Every narcissist has a weak spot. It's not about accusations, shouting, or even being exposed. It's something far more simple, yet so destructive that they will do almost anything to avoid it. When we hear the word narcissist, most people picture someone who seems utterly certain of themselves. They walk into a room with confidence. They know how to charm. They know how to draw attention, and they know how to take control. It feels like nothing can stop them, as if they feed on the emotions of others and only grow stronger the more noise and reaction they provoke. But behind this mask of strength lies a surprising vulnerability. A narcissist survives on constant attention. That is their air, their lifeline, their only true source of energy. And for them, it doesn't really matter what you feel, whether it's admiration, irritation, fear, or anger. Even your tears, even your accusations, become fuel for them. The only thing that matters is that there is a reaction, that they remain a significant figure in your eyes. And this is where their weak spot reveals itself. There is something that cuts off this supply completely. Not harsh words, not conflicts, not reproaches, but silence, indifference, the total absence of reaction. When the other person stops playing by their rules and chooses not to respond. For the narcissist, it feels like a sudden abyss opening up beneath them. They no longer receive proof of their power. They no longer feel important. And that absence hits them harder than anything else ever could. Today, we're going to explore why ignoring a narcissist becomes the most devastating form of punishment for them. Why silence forces them to confront their deepest fears and exposes just how fragile their supposed confidence really is. Let's take a closer look at the psychology of narcissism. A narcissist lives off external confirmation of their importance. Picture someone who seems permanently plugged into an invisible power outlet. From this outlet flows all their energy, praise, attention, the emotions of the people around them. The moment that outlet is cut off, they're left with emptiness and unease, as if nothing inside them can hold them up on its own. In psychology, this is often called narcissistic supply. It can take many forms. Admiring glances from colleagues, envy from rivals, or even open hostility. For the narcissist, it doesn't matter whether the attention is positive or negative. What matters is being noticed, being acknowledged, being treated as significant. Take a simple example. Imagine a narcissist giving a presentation at work. If the room is silent, they'll feel awkward, unsettled, exposed. But if someone interrupts to argue, to challenge, even to criticize, that's actually better. Because it means there's a reaction, and the focus has shifted onto them. Even if it's conflict, they once again feel that they're in control, that they matter, that they're influencing the situation. Or think about a relationship. A narcissist says something hurtful to their partner. If the partner reacts by snapping back, defending themselves, or breaking down in tears, the narcissist feels satisfied. Deep inside, they think, yes, I matter. My words have weight. I control their emotions. But if the partner doesn't react at all, the ground disappears beneath their feet. And here lies the great paradox. A narcissist appears confident, unshakable, even dominant. But that confidence rests entirely on external supports. Inside, there's no stable core, no enduring sense of self that can exist without constant reflection in the eyes of others. They are like a mirror that has no image of its own. It only reflects the light that falls upon it. That is why life for a narcissist becomes a relentless hunt for supply. They search for new sources, compliments, attention, conflicts, social media, status, money. None of these are goals in themselves. They are means. Means to once again feel real, to reassure themselves that they exist. And this is the crucial point. As long as there is reaction, as long as there is a flow of emotion, the narcissist feels secure. But once that flow is interrupted, once the attention disappears, they come face to face with the thing they fear most: emptiness. The crushing sense of being insignificant. Let's now look at why being ignored is unbearable for the narcissist. Carl Jung wrote that every person seeks confirmation of their sense of self in the eyes of others. We see ourselves reflected in those around us, and that reflection shapes our feeling of reality. A healthy personality has an inner foundation, a core that provides the sense of I exist, even when outside attention is minimal. But for the narcissist, that core is missing. Their inner emptiness demands constant confirmation from the outside world. In Jung's terms, they have never confronted their shadow or integrated it. Instead, they've built a grand persona, a mask that must be fueled again and again to keep working. This is why when you argue with a narcissist, even if you raise your voice or accuse them, they still receive attention. Any emotional response becomes fuel. It doesn't matter whether the emotion is positive or negative. In that moment, they feel they exist in your eyes, that their mask is still intact, still functioning. But when you choose silence, when you step out of contact, they are forced to face the most terrifying thing of all: the absence of control. It feels like a sudden disconnection from the world around them. For them, it's not just a pause. It's as if their very link to reality is cut off. Without your reaction, their persona begins to lose its power. And what surfaces instead is the very thing they've worked so hard to conceal: emptiness, fear, and inner chaos. Imagine this. A narcissist is used to pressing buttons and getting results. Push the button, the light comes on. Say something hurtful, you flare up. Throw out a reproach, you rush to defend yourself. But then, one day, the button stops working. The light no longer turns on. There's no reaction. In Jung's view, this is the moment of confrontation with their shadow, the very thing they've been running from their entire life. And that is why indifference is so unbearable. It strips the narcissist of their familiar script, shatters their control, and forces them into direct contact with the emptiness they have always tried to cover with the emotions of others. This is where things get interesting, because the moment you stop reacting, their entire system of control begins to fall apart. A narcissist builds relationships around a carefully written script. They rely on a set of tactics that they repeat over and over. Say something hurtful, and wait for your angry outburst. Throw in a subtle insult, and watch as you start defending yourself. Drop a hint about your imperfections, and trigger guilt. Every move is calculated, like pieces on a chessboard. One move from them, followed by several predictable responses from you. This is how they maintain control, not through force, but by managing the emotions of others. Ignoring them breaks this entire system. The moment you stop reacting, their strategy collapses. It's like an actor stepping onto the stage and beginning a monologue, only to watch the audience get up and walk out. The lines are spoken, the gestures are made, but there is no response. For the narcissist, this is unbearable, because the point of their game was never the words themselves. It was your emotions. Think of an everyday example. A partner who thrives on provocation deliberately brings up your past mistakes, twisting facts and throwing accusations. Normally, you would argue, explain, defend yourself. And in doing so, you give them exactly what they want: your attention, your energy, your guilt. But then one day, you choose a different response. You stay calm. You don't raise your voice. You don't justify yourself. In that moment, their script disintegrates. They lose control because the most important element, your reaction, is gone. In the workplace, it looks similar. A narcissistic boss or colleague makes a sarcastic remark, expecting laughter from the group and embarrassment from you. But if you don't react, if you simply continue your work without acknowledging the jab, the remark hangs in the air like a stone that never lands. Instead of gaining power, they face emptiness. Their grip on the group begins to weaken. Here we can return once again to Jung. He wrote that many people live through projection. They don't see themselves fully, but use others as a screen for their inner shadows. A narcissist does exactly this. They create scenarios designed to pull emotions out of you, then mirror those emotions back to themselves as proof of their significance. Your anger or your tears become evidence that they matter. But if you stop being that screen, the projection collapses, and with it, their control crumbles. It's important to understand, for a narcissist, control isn't just a preference, it's survival. They don't know how to relate in any other way. That's why being ignored feels to them like a threat to their very existence. They may flail, push harder, or try new provocations. But the calmer and more consistent your indifference, the quicker it becomes clear. The script no longer works. And in that moment, the narcissist comes face to face with their own helplessness. Where once they pulled the strings like a puppeteer, the strings are now cut, and that shatters their illusion of power. Beneath the outer shell of grandeur and confidence, a narcissist always hides the same feeling, the fear of being nobody. This fear runs deeper than ordinary insecurity or doubt that any person might experience. It is the sense of complete emptiness inside, carefully concealed behind a mask of success, charm, and strength. Carl Jung said that every person must eventually confront their own shadow, the parts of ourselves we suppress and reject, the aspects we are most afraid to admit. For the narcissist, that shadow is the feeling of worthlessness, insignificance, and inner chaos. But instead of facing and integrating it, they run from it. They construct a grand image, a persona, that constantly needs outside validation in order to survive. Indifference becomes the mirror in which the narcissist is forced to see their shadow. As long as you react, they feel alive, important, significant. But the moment you go silent, the grand facade collapses. They are left face to face with a terrifying thought. What if I am nothing without the emotions of others? What if I don't exist without their reactions? And this is why their responses can be so extreme. Some lash out, raising their voice, accusing, provoking harder, desperate to pull your attention back, to restore the fuel they depend on. Others switch to pleading, promising, even crying, because for them, any reaction is better than silence. Still others stage dramatic scenes, displaying despair, even making threats, all in an effort to drag you back into the game. Take an example from a relationship. A narcissistic partner is met with your silence. At first they explode in anger. "You're ignoring me? How dare you?" When that fails, they pivot to begging. "Please, just say something. I can't stand this silence." And if that still doesn't work, they may escalate to extreme measures, manipulation, blackmail, even threats. Anything to avoid being left alone with the void inside. The same pattern appears in social settings. Imagine someone who has always been the life of the party, the center of attention. But then, people stop reacting to their stories and jokes. At first, they raise their voice, becoming louder, more theatrical. Then they start criticizing or blaming others, desperate to recapture the spotlight. Yet the more they are ignored, the greater their panic becomes. Because without an audience, their image dissolves. Jung wrote that the most difficult trial for any human being is the confrontation with one's own shadow, with the terrifying sense of nothingness. For a healthy person, this painful process can lead to growth and self-awareness. But for the narcissist, indifference forces this confrontation violently. They are not prepared for it, and so they erupt in a storm of emotion, doing anything they can to avoid that recognition. This is why indifference feels to them like betrayal, like the collapse of their entire system. But in reality, it is nothing more than a mirror reflecting their deepest fear, the fear of being nobody. It's important to understand that ignoring a narcissist is not a game, and it's not revenge. It's not a cold punishment, and it's not about trying to hurt them back. It is a tool of protection, a way of taking back control over your own life. When you stop reacting to their provocations, it's as if you cut the invisible strings they've been using to manipulate your emotions. Many people make the mistake of thinking, if I go silent, it means I'm being cruel. But in this context, indifference is not cruelty. It's a refusal to continue playing a destructive game. You're not seeking payback. You're not trying to punish. You are simply refusing to give away your energy to someone who uses it against you. Take an example from a relationship. A narcissistic partner tries once again to trigger guilt. You never think about me. You only think about yourself. In the past, you might have rushed to defend yourself, to explain, to argue. But this time, you make a different choice. You stay calm, continue with what you are doing, and you don't get pulled into the conflict. That's not cold-heartedness. That's your way of saying, I'm not playing this game anymore. Or look at the workplace. A narcissistic colleague makes a sarcastic remark at your expense, hoping to assert superiority. Before, you might have felt flustered or tried to justify yourself, which only fed into their tactics. But then one day, you stop reacting. You finish your point in the meeting calmly, ignoring the jab. And suddenly, their usual tool doesn't work anymore. Your strength shows itself precisely in the fact that you remain steady, refusing to be dragged into someone else's game. This is where Jung's ideas become relevant again. He said that maturity is the ability to stop living only through the expectations and projections of others. He called this process individuation, becoming your true self. When you stop reacting to the narcissist's provocations, you're taking a step toward individuation. You are no longer the screen for someone else's projections. Instead, you become the center of your own life. Indifference is a boundary. It is like closing a door, not to punish the person on the other side, but to protect the space within. It's a way of saying, this is my territory, and here I decide the rules. And the most striking thing is that when you stop feeding the narcissist with your reactions, you begin to feel your own energy returning. The same energy that once drained away into endless arguments, explanations, and tears now comes back to you. You could say that indifference is a quiet form of strength. It doesn't need shouting. It doesn't need fighting. It is the power of silence, a force that dismantles someone else's illusion of control while at the same time reinforcing your inner boundaries. And here lies the key. Indifference doesn't make you a cold person. It makes you a person who chooses themselves. For a narcissist, there is nothing more terrifying than becoming invisible. They can endure your shouting, your accusations, even your anger. All of that still serves as proof that they matter, that they still exist in your world. But indifference is a different kind of force. It erases them from your field of vision. They stop being the center of your universe. They no longer control your feelings or your thoughts. Your indifference is not emptiness. It is a boundary. It says, you no longer have power over me. I choose myself. I choose my emotions. I choose my energy. And this is where true strength lies. Picture the scene. In the past, any of their attacks made you react, defending yourself, arguing, crying. You were like a puppet. pulled by invisible strings. But then one day, you stop reacting. The strings are still in their hands, but they no longer work. And with that, the entire structure of their illusion collapses. Without your reaction, they are no longer a puppeteer, just a person who has lost control. Indifference is your way out of this cycle. It frees you from the role of being a participant in someone else's manipulation. And most importantly, it doesn't make you hard or cruel. And it doesn't drag you down to their level. It makes you free. Because freedom is the ability to choose where your attention and your energy go. Carl Jung wrote that maturity begins when a person stops searching for their reflection in others and learns to find themselves within. Your indifference toward the narcissist is not coldness. It is a step toward maturity. It is the moment you stop being a mirror for someone else's projections and become the owner of your own life. Remember this: indifference does not destroy you. It destroys the illusion of the narcissist's power. And that is why silence becomes the strongest answer in situations where any words would fail.